Hello guys and welcome back to Haymanager with me Alex, and today a fantasy football video where we're going to go through the best budget players to put into your fantasy Premier League teams, whether it's from starters to bench players to even just backup players inside of your fantasy Premier League team. These are the type of players you want to put in your side to try and get maximum output for as little value as possible. So we'll start from the back, going goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders and forwards. So we're going to start off with Ilan Meslier from Leeds. So Leeds outgoings this season, it's been Rafinha and Calvin Phillips, quite two massive players for the club. But we know that Leeds also are pretty open at the back, as you can see here. Meslier, a few discrepancies within here because we know he's very, very good in net essentially. But with the defence in front of him, is he going to be able to try and get those clean sheets and saves that you need? So last year, 38 games played, only the 5 assists, but 139 saves with quite a high save percentage. He's only 22 as well, you've got to remember. Goals against per 92.1, and with Jesse March in charge now this season, things are quite open for Leeds, whether or not they can actually try and pick up a few games here and there. But Meslier, a keeper for 4.5 million, who's always going to get you lots of points through saves, a potential to maybe save a few penalties as well. I know I've seen one or two that he's saved last season and the season before. He's a decent enough goalkeeper to be put in as a backup. You want to get a major player like Ramsdale or maybe Edison or even, for example, Alisson, who's not the greatest player to put into your side, but he's definitely just a backup player. I think a lot of people have picked him. His influence last year, his first creativity and threat, obviously not going to be great within the goalkeepers ones to really pick at, but that influence, being first, is quite a big one. So I'd keep an eye on him, and I'd definitely try and get him inside of your teams as a backup player. Next up on the list, James Justin. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. I've taken his stats from the 2021 season because last year he was off with an injury. He did have an injury. I think he picked a pretty harsh injury towards the back end of the 2021 season. I think it was to do with his Achilles, and then, ever since then he just missed out the season last year. Matches played, in the 2021 season was 23. Assists, he only got the 1, and expected assist was 1.6, but the amount of crosses this man does put in, he's very, very good, and he was developing to a very high standard. He's only young still, again, another young player, but 9 clean sheets. If Leicester can really find their form again this year with some solid defensive work that we saw last season. Luke Thomas, for example, is a great rising talent. Fafana has been he's accrued a lot of interest over the last few weeks and months. And then also Soyuncu and also Ricardo Pereira, who's picked up a few. He's quite injury prone, Pereira, so we'll have to see how he sort of slots back into that side. But I think Justin for 4.5 million is a pretty good pick, especially to start off the year with Brentford at home. I think Leicester are going to try and probably go with him in the starting spots and then work around that in defence. But I think Leicester, to be honest with you, are looking pretty good this season. The likes of Maddison, Tielemans, Vardy, Daka, Iheanacho, especially Harvey Barnes as well, a fantastic addition. It's just whether or not James Justin can perform at the back. That's one of the big questions. So we'll have to see how well he does there. Influence is only 108th, creativity 61st, and 89th as threat, because last year he did miss out on quite a few games. So one of the players to really look at and see if he can build around if he starts playing a lot of games, which hopefully he will. Next up, Leandro Trossard from Brighton. So Brighton last year had a very interesting year. Their expected goals and the way they played the game was phenomenal. They had a really, really high standard of football, very creative, great going forward, counter-attacking play. You're thinking this is Graham Potter's masterclass, sort of like a really, really great side tactically. They didn't really perform. That's the issue. So this season, I've looked at pre-season games, 2 hat-tricks for Leandro Trossard in those games. Now, he did hit the woodwork a numerous amount of times last year. So this year, potentially, looking forward, Brighton having a pretty difficult start to the year, but then levelling off and having quite a few nice games towards the back end of maybe the first half of the season. I think Leandro Trossard might be a nice little signing to get in, because Brighton don't have that out-and-out forward, that striker that's unbelievable. You've always got like the likes of Trossard or different types of players. McAllister, for an example, might be like a nice little addition to your side. But for 6.5 million, Trossard's a nice little addition. 34 games he played last year, 8 goals, 3 assists. He averages around about 2 crosses per 90. Shot creating actions, 3 per game, 3 per 90. Looking at 3 times he's creating shots for himself, others, and that's quite a lot. That is quite a lot. As far as SCA goes, shot creating actions, that's a lot within those sort of players, and I'll let you see the next few examples what I mean. Influence 24th, creativity 17th, and threat 6th. Very, very similar to Jared Bowen's sort of makeup. Very, very similar. Influence and creativity not as high, but his threat when he does play 6th amongst all midfielders within the Fantasy Premier League system is very, very high. So Trossard, another one, for example, to use 6.5 million. Pretty nice value for money. That's what we're looking for here. Budget players. Now, Marcus Rashford. People are going to hate me for this one, I believe, but I think Marcus Rashford, despite the fact that last year he was out of form, low on confidence, out of shape as well for one of them, for lack of a better word, because of that injury he picked up, he played through the Euros, he then had only about 2 weeks off, to which he then had his surgery, he came back, I think it was like a week or two late, but still started playing the games, playing through injuries. I think now that he's probably had the long rest through summer, he had a lot of the time last year to sort of think about himself, progress himself, because Rangnick didn't really fell out of love with this player, he decided not to play him. I think this season, after watching Sancho, Martial and Rashford up front, this man as a 6.5 million pick in the midfield is necessary. I think it's got to happen with Ten Hag, with how great he is at developing players, with how he's fit in this pre-season. I think this man has got to be in your sides. Last year, 25 games played, 4 goals, 2 assists, 1.82 crosses per 90, 2.11 shot creating actions, despite the fact he had quite a poor season. Like 2.11 creating shots for himself and others. He is he's creative, he's great at finishing up front, the runs in behind are brilliant. I think you've got to really go with this man. 104th in influence, 116th in creativity, 56th in threat amongst midfielders. I think FPL have really valued him so low this year, expecting him not to play because of how he did last year. And I think this is a real opportunity to try and pick a player that we know is so good, we know is brilliant, we know he's going to perform after the years gone by. This season, get him in early, take a punt at him, put him into your side, and let's see how he performs, because I reckon it's going to fly up, that price. I reckon it'll fly up, and that's exactly what you're after inside of Fantasy Premier League. So, next up, Martin Ødegaard. Now, the newly declared captain for Arsenal. It's going to be an interesting season for Martin Ødegaard. So, as you can see here, 6.5 million. Arsenal have a very, very kind opening few games for the season. A good start for this first 6 games. Matches played last year, 36, 7 goals and 4 assists. He's been playing the majority of the games. We know Smith Rowe was very active in sort of that centre attacking mid/left winger role. Ødegaard really took claim to that spot. That was his position. He took claim of that. Key passes, the one that every attacking midfielder, I will always have a key passes statistic that I'll put in. I don't know why I said that so weird. Statistic that I'll put in 2.46 per 90. Key passes are you through balls in behind, you really sharp balls that are going to dictate the play and essentially have an outcome of either an assist or a shot or a high percentage expected goals shot. Shot creating actions per 90, 4.33. I think that says it all. I think that was amongst one of the highest in the league, 4.33. He's creating 4.5 chances per game. Even if over 38 games, 36 games for example, you're creating 4.33 with it. Not to disregard the talent last year, but Saka was still developing. We've seen him become another monster so far within pre-season. Aubameyang left, Lacazette, not the greatest of strikers, out of form. You've brought in Jesus, you've got Martinelli coming up through the ranks, you've got Ødegaard taking on the world himself. A few nice players additionally added into the side here and there. I think Ødegaard's an absolute steal. For 6.5 million, you're looking at him getting quite a few assists, he's on free kicks, he's taken the captain's armband. Last year, influence 20th, creativity 4th, which is the main one, he's a very creative player, and threat 28th. You've got to stick this man in your team. I don't know how you can't stick this man in your team. If you go for the likes of Saka, I can understand, but Ødegaard, 6.5 million for a player that realistically is going to get quite a lot of goals and assists this year again, probably in double digits for either goals or assists. I'll put my money on that. He will get double digits for one or the other. Then the player that everyone's sort of raving about in this Fantasy Premier League community is Pedro Neto. Now, this man last year I think he was out with an injury. He played quite a few minutes, only 5 starts, but he played quite a few, 1,300 minutes. Came off the bench quite a bit. I think this guy, from a standpoint where you're looking at players who are going to progress, who are going to come back into form, after a season off last year, he came back. I think he got 3 goals, 1 assist, somewhere around that. Only below 5 goal contributions, I think it was. Wolves then in pre-season have looked great. Haymanager has been back on form, scoring every goal. Neto has scored every game, should I say? Not every goal, every game. Neto has scored every game. We've seen players really come into their own at Wolves, and they're playing good football. They're playing very good football. For $5.5 million, if you look at the other players that are around about that price, you've got Gallagher, he's not going to get a game. You've got Rice, you've got Kante, you've got Moutinho or Neves from Wolves. Pedro Neto is going to be part of that front three. He's going to be getting goals, getting assists, getting crosses in, all sorts. This man is you need him in your side, essentially. This guy is the guy. 31 matches played, so this was on 2020-21 season. 31 games, 5 goals, 6 assists, 4.5 crosses per 90. Unbelievable stat. And then 4 shot creating actions per 90. That's still unbelievably high for Pedro Neto. He had a very good year that year, but last year 135th in influence, 103rd in creativity, 93rd in threat, came off an injury. Again, another player like Rashford who has probably been undervalued, but Fantasy Premier League, the FPL, haven't really taken into consideration pre-season and how great this man is. If he catches his form again, another unbelievable steal. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video, looking through the budget players, your best value for money players, should I really say, and really trying to figure out a way to get them into your side. You're looking at Pedro Neto for $5.5 million. You might weigh up the options of, am I going to get a Bowen, am I going to get a Foden, or players like that, and you think, well, actually, these guys might not score this game week. $5.5 million for Neto, you can spend that elsewhere. That extra $3.5 million, 3 million, sorry, you can probably put into a Haaland or a Kane. You look at players like that, it's quite the difference. It's quite the difference. You look at Gabriel Jesus being 8 million, you can then increase on that and maybe get a Haaland or a Kane for an additional 3.5 million, wherever he is trying to save. James Justin, $4.5 million, great player to pick up alongside you like Dallows and players like that. Yeah, just fantastic. Just really good players to really put into your team, especially Ødegaard as well. Now we've got the captain's armband, the confidence flowing through that Arsenal side. It's going to be scary. So Ødegaard, another player you probably put into your side. Let me know down below in the comments who you've got as your budget picks, and you've picked out some little gems, whether or not it's a striker. I think I've seen Brighton have a striker that has come in who looks like a pretty nice little tidy striker. Nottingham Forest have a few nice little forwards going for $6 million. Let me know who you've put into your side as well, as sort of your budget, your substitute, your bench warmer, so to speak, your backup players, but with a great value for money. Let me know down below in the comments. So as ever, if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one. From me, Alex, have a great day. Ciao.